Hello, welcome to day 11 of Color Month. Today I'm using the Give It a Whirl die set from Lawn Fawn to create a really fun card. And it's hard to kind of see what it is until you see a video of some finished cards. So here are a couple examples from Lawn Fawn. This is over at their YouTube channel. In fact, their video that Kelly Marie did on this particular die set really does show you how you can create your card with the dies. And I referenced that video while I was creating my card. And even when I was troubleshooting it and I had some issues, I went back to Kelly's video. But you can see it kind of has two scenes. You've got the first scene and then you whirl it and then there's a second scene. So my idea came about by saying the first scene will say you bring and the second scene will say color to my life. So I actually went on my computer and I mocked up my card and then printed it out on some Bristol paper. And I wanted to do some foiling on it. So I've put that square bounding box around each one just so I'll use that later when I'm stamping. But for now, I just did the foiling on top. Now I have a laser printer. It's a very inexpensive laser printer, not the top quality, but it does okay. And that's what I use for this because you need that toner from a laser printer to make that gold foil adhere. So this is like a heat foiling transfer onto the cardstock. And once again, this is Bristol paper. This is Strathmore Bristol paper because I'm going to be using my markers on this, my Caron Brush Marker Pros. So I'm going to be using the Floral Mix background stamp from Simon Says Stamp, and I want the flowers to be in the exact same spot for both scenes on my card. So I'm going to use a kind of clear sticky mat from My Sweet Petunia. I'm going to adhere scene 1 card on the mat, and it comes in a set of 3 mats. So I'm going to take one of the other mats, put that right over the top so I can see where that first scene was adhered to the mat. Then I'm adhering that second scene. So now I can stamp both of these scenes with the same background stamp, and the flowers should be in pretty much the same spot. So I'm positioning my stamp over my scene, kind of making sure I have a good mix of flowers there. And then I'm going to mask off the words because I don't want those stamped lines to go across all of that foiling. So I actually printed out my design again on just very thin computer paper, and I fussy cut out the words, and then I just place it on top. I didn't adhere it or anything like that because I didn't want it to possibly pull up any of that gold foiling. So it's just sitting there gently. I inked up my stamp with VersaFine Onyx Black ink and then very slowly brought that stamp down. I didn't want to close my MISTI really fast and then it would cause some air to rush through and move that mask, and thankfully it worked. The little mask paper didn't move at all, and I was able to stamp that first scene. So I've removed the first scene and I'm putting the second one back in. I'm going to cover it with my mask that I've cut out, and then I'll ink up my background stamp with that same VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which I chose because it's waterproof. Like I said, I'm going to be doing my Caron markers for this. And then I stamped very slowly down onto the second scene. And it stamped these flowers perfectly and had no issues whatsoever. All I had to do was remove that mask, and then I'm just about ready to start on my watercoloring. So I picked out a color for today's color combo from the Volume 2 color cubes. I'm going to use color combo 376, and I picked out my Caron Brush Marker Pro markers. I've got 6 different shades, and I'm just going to go in and start painting. I'm putting the color down onto the paper and then using a wet brush to spread out that color. And I'm going to do a black and white scene for scene 1 and then full color for scene 2. So I'm going to turn on some music and you can enjoy the painting. For the background on both the black and white scene and the color scene, I used a black marker. And then I did a textured background to go behind my Give It a Whirl mechanism. So I used the Puff Dotty 3D embossing folder from Spellbinders and some white cardstock. And then I came in with black ink from Concord and Ninth and just kind of ink blended those corners. And I'll put it on a card base, and then I'm going to assemble my Give It a Whirl. So here are all the pieces you need. This is directly from the Lawn Fawn video. I'm going to try to walk you through how I put this together, but really there are better instructions in other videos. Jennifer McGuire has a video. I'll link that down below as well. She has some great instructions on the Give It a Whirl stuff, but basically, I needed to cut both of my scenes with the smaller circle die. I also have this little tab out of some copy paper. I have the pull tab out of some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White, and then the pull tab cover out of some Hero Arts Pitch Black cardstock, or actually I think that's Basil Licorice Twist cardstock. So there's scene 1 cut with that circle die, and it's got a little kind of half slit on the right side. I'm then going to take the larger circle, and I'm cutting that out of just plain white cardstock. And then I'm cutting a second circle that's the exact same as my scene 1. And I'm using that same die, the smaller circle die, to cut out my scene 2. So I've got scene 1 and scene 2 cut out using the same die, the smaller circle die. And I'm going to start assembling. So I basically got the scene 1, and there's that white one that's the same size, scene 2, and then the scene 2 is going to go directly on top of my little white circle, like the bigger circle with the stitching lines. So I'm putting some adhesive on the back of my scene 2, and I'm going to line up the slit on scene 2 with this little slit that's cut into the stitched circle. And in order to get that on just right, I'm actually putting a little cardstock inside that slit, and then it's going to help me guide that cardstock down and get it adhered just perfectly so that those slits are completely lined up. This was a little bit difficult, took me a minute, but in the end it worked out just fine, and I'm glad I had that cardstock in there so it helps that slit not get like covered up with cardstock that's being adhered on top. So you can see I've got that cut piece right there. That's exactly how I want it. All right, so now I'm going to take this little copy paper. This is like computer paper, this little tab, and I'm going to put adhesive all on one side. Now, I had some difficulties getting my whirl mechanism to work correctly. Those of you in my premium membership who saw me working on this live know that I had to recreate this card a couple times, and I think thinking back on it, my error was that I didn't have this little tab adhered strong enough to both the back of scene 1 and also the plain white circle. So this is one of those tab things that you just want to make sure you have adhesive on both sides. So now I'm going to like put some cardstock behind that other tab, like the other side of the tab, to catch any adhesive that's coming off the edge. And you really do want adhesive covering every single bit of the surface of that tab and no more. You don't want it outside of the tab or anything like that. You really want to make sure it's adhered well. And then you'll line up the plain white circle behind that scene 1, and I'm going to adhere them together. So the only places they're adhered is just that little tab that I put on in between them. So I think my mistake here was I didn't burnish the tab area and didn't make sure that they were really stuck together. But I'm just giving you a warning, that's probably where my issue lied. Okay, so now I'm taking the pull tab or the little handle and putting adhesive just on the side that's kind of curved, and that curved edge matches up with the back of scene 1. So I'm just going to put it on the back of my top circle and sandwich it in between those two circles. So it's only adhered to the back of the front circle. And then I'm going to take my little tab cover, the pull tab cover, and just adhere that over the top using some liquid glue, just so I could kind of move it around and get it in the right spot. Okay, so that piece is all ready. So now I'm going to I'm turning both of them over, And then I'm going to take just the front of my assembled whirl piece and slide that into the slit on my scene 2. And then I'm going to guide it through and kind of pull it all the way through and around. And so then you can see how when it's completely closed, that's what it looks like. And then when you start to rotate it around, it reveals the colorful scene 2 underneath. So you really do have to kind of practice this, kind of give it a go, rotate it many times. One tip though, I would not do solid foiling right over that center area. I think the cardstock rubs a little too much. So in Kelly Marie's video, she actually advises you to use a narrow foam strip and go around the outside edge of the Give It a Whirl pieces. I tried that and I thought maybe the issues I was having were from the foam tape. So I instead cut a little black frame out of some waffle flower circle dies that were just about the size of the whirl mechanism. I cut out 4 of them, stacked them using some liquid glue, and then I glued my frame right on the outside of that whirl mechanism. And I think this works just fine, but I think it may have been just a little bit too big. I think if it was just a tiny bit smaller, I think it would have made the card a little bit better, but that's neither here nor there and something after the fact. So then I put glue on the back of just that black circle frame and then adhered it to my card. So now you can see here's the finished card and you can kind of whirl it around. The top circle does sort of slip a little bit, and that's why I think you need to use a slightly smaller black cardstock frame, just so it will really hold that in place. But I also looked at some other people's cards online and other people who have made cards with the Give It a Whirl dies, and theirs also slipped just a little bit. So I think in order to have it be really smooth, you just have to live with a little bit of that slip. I did end up texting Kelly Marie, and she said that slipping of the circle probably was because of my like cardstock frame being a little bit too big. But also she said that maybe Lawn Fawn would kind of play with the idea of offering a die in the future that would cut the perfect size to go with this, so you don't have to, use whatever circle die you have in your stash. Anyway, this was a learning experience. I don't know that I'm going to make another one of these cards anytime soon, because I did try to make another one that I did not film, and it was a fail. So I'm not sure why I struggle with this die set so much, but I love the idea so much. Everything I've used is listed down below in the supplies. Go ahead and click through and check that out. Check out the Give It a Whirl dies. I think they're really fun to work with, and probably the more you use them, the easier it becomes. Thanks for watching today. I'll be back on Friday with the very last day of Color Month, day 12. Hope to see you there.